Our world runs on a single system. Tick, tick. Time moves in a straight line. Every smartphone in New York, every flight in Chicago, every heartbeat of Wall Street, all synchronized to one calendar. We assume time is absolute, unchangeable. But we are wrong. There is a place on Earth where time refuses to follow Western rules. A land that deliberately moves against the rhythm the rest of the world obeys. Welcome to the most perfect anomaly of the 21st century. While you are planning your year 2024, a vast nation in the Horn of Africa is still living in 2016. And it does so by choice. Here there are not 12 months like the calendar on your wall. Their year has 13. The final unusual month lasts only 5 or 6 days, acting as a bridge to complete a cycle the rest of the world abandoned centuries ago. This is not science fiction. This is reality in Ethiopia, one of the oldest nations on Earth. For thousands of years, as powerful Western empires expanded and imposed their systems across the globe. Ethiopia stood firm like an unbreakable fortress. It remains the only nation in Africa never fully colonized. When foreign armies arrived with weapons and new ideologies, this land sealed itself behind towering mountains and an unyielding will to survive. They preserved their own alphabet. They kept their ancient faith. And they rejected the Gregorian calendar. They decided that time belongs to them, not to the outside world. From that defiance emerged a raw and untouched world where familiar rules lose meaning. A place that exists like an island within time itself, where history does not sit quietly in museums, but breathes daily across highlands sharp as blades. Forget everything you think you know. Erase your assumptions about human progress, because what you are about to witness goes far beyond imagination. If you think Death Valley defines extreme conditions, you may need to reset your understanding of survival itself. Imagine combining that vast desert with the toxic boiling surface of Jupiter and creating something even more hostile. That place exists. It is called Dalol, deep within the Danakil Depression. This is not just a point on a map. It is a prehistoric chemical laboratory built by the Earth itself. A place that seems to reject life entirely. The moment you step onto Dalol's surface, what you see first is not sand or rock, but a disturbing spectrum of color. Neon yellow and emerald green acid pools bubble violently. Massive salt chimneys rise and spit toxic gas into the air. The ground beneath your feet is fragile, brittle, ready to collapse into boiling chemical liquid below. The air is not meant to be breathed. It is thick with sulfur and chlorine, capable of burning your lungs within moments. This toxic atmosphere hovers over one of the hottest inhabited regions on Earth. Why does such a surreal and brutal world exist? The answer lies beneath your feet. This is a place where the Earth is literally tearing itself apart. The Danakil Depression sits on a tectonic triple junction where three massive plates are slowly pulling away from each other. This violent process fractures the crust, allowing molten magma to rise close to underground water. As water passes through layers of salt and minerals, it is superheated by magma erupting as boiling chemical-rich fluids. Standing in Dalol means standing on an open wound of the planet, watching Earth destroy and rebuild itself in real time. And yet in the center of this hellish landscape, there is a paradox. People live here. They are the Afar people, one of the most resilient groups on Earth. While most humans would collapse within hours under temperatures reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit, the Afar have survived here for centuries. They have no modern cooling systems, no heavy machinery. Their survival depends on a body adapted to extremes and an unbreakable will. Each day, under a sun that burns like a furnace, Afar men enter the Danakil Depression to harvest their most valuable resource, white gold. Not metal, but salt. Massive salt deposits formed millions of years ago when ancient seas evaporated. Using only wooden tools and simple axes, they cut the hardened salt into rectangular blocks. The work happens in suffocating heat. Sweat evaporates before it can even fall. These blocks are then loaded onto camels. Long caravans begin their journey across the desert, moving in silence under deadly heat. For weeks, they travel carrying salt to distant markets in exchange for food and water. The sight of these caravans crossing glowing acid fields creates a scene both breathtaking and terrifying. Here, nature has built one of the most brutal traps on Earth: heat, chemicals, and isolation. It shows the immense power of creation and destruction. But it also reveals something else: the endurance of humanity. The Afar and their journey prove that even in places where the planet itself seems to reject life, humans still find a way to endure, adapt, and stand firm at the very center of destruction. While much of humanity is tethered to glowing screens, convinced the world cannot function without wireless connection and social approval, deep in southwestern Ethiopia lies a vast valley untouched by the virus of modernity. Welcome to the Omo Valley. There is no cell signal here, no GPS, and absolutely none of the softened moral frameworks of the 21st century. This is not a living museum or a human zoo for Western tourists to photograph and leave behind. It is the final front line of raw survival, where people have resisted the forces of global assimilation for over 5,000 years. Here, the boundaries between beauty, brutality, and survival power are completely erased, challenging everything you thought you understood. What does beauty mean to you? Perhaps a perfect smile, shaped by modern dentistry or expensive cosmetic procedures in places like Beverly Hills, designed to preserve youth. But for the Mursi people of the Omo Valley, beauty and status are defined through a process far more extreme. From a young age, Mursi girls undergo a painful transformation. Their lower lips are cut open, then gradually stretched to hold plates made of clay or wood. Over time, these plates increase in size, some reaching up to 6 inches in diameter, roughly the size of a standard dinner plate. Why would they willingly subject themselves to such pain? Many Western historians once imposed their own interpretation. Suggesting this tradition began as a desperate defense, believing ancient Mursi women disfigured their faces to avoid being taken by slave traders. But the deeper truth is far more powerful and proud. For the Mursi, the lip plate has never been a symbol of submission or fear. It is a bold declaration of strength, resilience, and ancestral pride. It proves a woman's ability to endure extreme pain. The larger the plate, the greater the endurance, and with it comes the highest social status and absolute respect from even the fiercest warriors in the tribe. While the modern world injects chemicals to hide the truth of time, the Mursi use clay and blood to carve their story of survival directly onto their faces. And if you think only women face trials beyond imagination, turn your gaze to the arid lands of the Hamer people, where the price of manhood is paid in blood, red dust, and sweat. In the United States, a boy is often recognized as a man when he receives a high school diploma or a driver's license. But for a Hamer boy, he is only accepted as a true man after enduring the brutal bull-jumping ritual. Under the scorching African sun, the young man must strip naked, sprint forward barefoot, and leap onto the backs of a tightly packed line of cattle. He must balance and run across their slippery backs 4 times in a row without falling. One slip is not just physical pain or broken bones. It is a social death sentence. He will be shamed by the tribe, labeled a coward, denied the right to marry, and forever excluded from being recognized as a man. But the most shocking part one that challenges the very limits of Western ideology does not lie in the man's leap, but in the women surrounding him. Before the ritual begins, The sisters and female relatives of the young man step forward voluntarily, asking other men to lash their backs with brutal whips until their skin splits open and bleeds. The sharp crack of leather cuts through the air, yet not a single scream or cry escapes their lips. Instead, they sing, they dance in a state of fierce pride, and they display their bleeding wounds without hesitation. Through the lens of modern civilization, this may appear as senseless violence, but within the enduring framework of the Hamer people, it is the most sacred and powerful blood contract. The scars etched permanently into a woman's back become her ultimate life insurance. By taking on pain in place of her brother on the most important day of his life, she creates a lifelong debt of blood, one that can never be denied. Whenever she faces danger or hunger in the future, that man is bound to protect and provide for her at any cost, even if it means sacrificing his own life. The Omo Valley does not seek pity from the modern world, nor does it wait for salvation from the West. The resilient people who inhabit this harsh land remind us of a raw and undeniable truth before laws, before written contracts, before towering cities. Human beings were bound together by primal forces, by sacrifice, and by the unforgiving laws of nature. They are not relics of the past. They are the last guardians standing at the edge of humanity itself, unyielding like living monuments, resisting the sweeping tide of assimilation that moves relentlessly across the planet. When we think about humanity's greatest constructions, our minds instinctively look upward. The colossal pyramids in Egypt, the Grand Colosseum, or the towering Empire State Building, all follow the same ancient rule of architecture: gather materials, stack them, and rise toward the sky. But at more than 8,000 feet, in the highlands of Ethiopia, there exists an engineering marvel that completely reverses that natural law. Here, humans did not build upward to reach the stars. They carved downward into the earth to find angels. Imagine being given an impossible task. You must create a church the size of a 3-story building. But you are forbidden from bringing a single brick to the site. There is no cement, no steel beams, no excavators, and absolutely no digital 3D design software. And the most terrifying constraint of all, you have zero margin for error. Unlike conventional construction, if you strike the stone incorrectly by even a few inches, you cannot patch it back. The entire structure would be permanently ruined. This is exactly what happened at Lalibela rock-hewn churches over 800 years ago. The 11 massive churches here were not built. They were carved from solid rock. Starting from a flat surface, medieval craftsmen dug enormous trenches deep into the hard red volcanic stone, isolating a giant block at the center. Then they hollowed that block from the top down to the ground, sculpting vaulted roofs, intricate windows, solid pillars, and a complex network of underground corridors. The process was like carving a small wooden statue in the palm of your hand, except this statue weighed tens of thousands of tons and served as a living space for thousands of people. As you descend the narrow stone steps and slowly enter the underground network of Lalibela rock-hewn churches, often called a New Jerusalem, a chilling sense of awe immediately takes hold. The temperature drops abruptly. Massive rock walls rise on both sides, blocking out the harsh African sun and casting deep, mysterious shadows. The silence is so absolute, you can hear the faint pulse of blood in your ears. That stillness, forged over 8 centuries, is occasionally broken only by the low, echoing chants of hooded monks in white robes gliding through the dark corridors like ghostly guardians of time. The most visually overwhelming masterpiece among them is Church of St. George. Seen from above, it appears as a perfectly carved cross, sunken 15 meters into the earth. It does not look like something built by human hands. It feels as if a divine seal has been pressed directly into the crust of the planet. Local legend passed down for generations claims that no human workforce could have completed such an immense project in so short a time. It is said that when the sun set and exhausted workers fell asleep, an army of angels descended to continue the work, carving through volcanic rock in the darkness with supernatural speed. For centuries, that was the only explanation that made sense. But when modern geologists and engineers arrived, the scientific reality they uncovered was even more astonishing than the myth. To design an underground complex of this scale, the builders must have possessed extraordinary spatial intelligence and advanced mathematical understanding. The most terrifying challenge was drainage. Built deep underground in a region with intense seasonal rains, even a minor miscalculation in slope channels or water pressure would have turned these 11 churches into massive reservoirs, flooding and destroying everything. Yet after 8 centuries, through countless storms and floods, the structures remain completely dry, stable, and fully functional. It is an engineering achievement as sophisticated, perhaps even more so than the pyramids of Egypt. Lalibela is not a lifeless ruin waiting for tourists with cameras. It is a living, beating heart. Tens of thousands of devoted pilgrims still arrive each year, walking barefoot across stone floors, polished smooth by millions of footsteps over centuries. It stands as a defiant challenge to modern engineering, proof that when pushed to the absolute limits, humanity can carve into the very skin of the earth and reveal something extraordinary. And yet even this volcanic masterpiece is not the greatest mystery hidden within this ancient land. behind a silent door in the north, lies something far more powerful, a relic so legendary that even Hollywood dreams of it. And the price of seeing it may be your life. If you grew up in the United States, chances are you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark at least once. Hollywood painted a thrilling fantasy about the hunt for the most powerful religious artifact in the world, pulling millions into breathtaking adventures on screen. But there's one truth that Blockbuster never told you. The search for the chest, said to hold the 10 Commandments, is not just entertainment. It's a real historical mystery. And you don't need to dig through dusty ruins in Egypt or the Middle East to find it. You only need to travel north in Ethiopia to an ancient mist-covered city called Aksum. To a logical, evidence-driven Western mind, this story may seem like a perfect tourist myth. We demand proof images, scientific validation. But when you stand on the dusty streets of Aksum and see thousands of pilgrims in white robes kneeling on cold stone, crying, praying with overwhelming devotion, you begin to understand something deeper. For tens of millions of Ethiopian Orthodox believers, this is not an archaeological puzzle to be solved. It is the gravitational force holding their spiritual world together. The Ark is proof that they are chosen a sacred center of the religious universe. The true power of Aksum does not lie in proving whether the Ark is there. Its power lies in an unbreakable belief that has burned for 3,000 years, one that has never needed validation from the outside world. Once you cross the threshold of 15,000 feet, the human body begins sending urgent distress signals. At that altitude, the air becomes razor thin. Every breath you take fails to deliver enough oxygen, forcing your lungs to struggle against the icy, biting air. Most Americans, when they think of Africa, imagine sunlit savannas, zebras grazing lazily under a scorching sky. But nature has a way of shattering expectations. Welcome to the Simien Mountains, often called the Roof of Africa. This is no gentle grassland. It is a colossal fortress of jagged volcanic towers, bottomless gorges, and bone-chilling winds, capable of toppling any fragile life form. In this brutal land, where oxygen is a luxury, evolution has forged creatures far beyond normal biological limits. The true rulers of these cold highlands are not lions or leopards, but a primate marked by prehistory itself, the Gelada. But don't let the name fool you. They are nothing like the monkeys you've seen in American zoos. Geladas are the last survivors of an ancient lineage that once roamed across Africa millions of years ago. Their most striking feature is a patch of bare, bright red skin on their chest, resembling a bleeding heart. In the freezing cold of the Simien Mountains, this bleeding heart serves as a biological signal, revealing health strength and reproductive readiness. Beside a grand church stands a small, modest chapel enclosed by a thin iron fence. It doesn't look imposing or technologically advanced, yet what lies within its walls is one of the most tightly guarded and mysterious secrets on Earth. Ethiopians firmly believe that not a replica, not a symbol, but the original Ark of the Covenant itself rests inside. And the security protecting this ultimate relic is not lasers, cameras, or armed guards. But a single man, a solitary monk chosen through an extremely rigorous religious process, takes on this sacred duty. The moment he steps inside to become the guardian, he begins a life sentence of devotion. He will never leave the compound until the day he dies. No one in the world, not even the most powerful leaders, not even the Pope, is allowed to enter or see the Ark. Every secret dies with the Guardian, forever beyond the reach of science. How did the holiest relic of the Jewish faith end up in the heart of Africa? The answer takes us back 3,000 years into the legends of King Solomon and Queen of Sheba. According to ancient tradition, their son, Emperor Menelik I, secretly brought the Ark from Jerusalem to his mother's homeland. To Western minds, this may sound like myth. But here it forms the foundation of the Solomonic Empire, a dynasty that ruled for centuries. This belief helped shape Ethiopia into one of the earliest Christian empires in the world. As early as the 4th century, long before much of Europe or even the mighty Roman Empire fully embraced Christianity, coins minted in Aksum already bore the symbol of the cross. They built a faith-based civilization centuries ahead of the West without outside influence. The air in Aksum is heavy with silence and mystery. Towering around the city are massive stone stelae carved from single blocks. And rising dozens of meters into the sky. These monuments, weighing hundreds of tons, stand like giant fingers pointing toward eternity. They are remnants of an empire that once controlled vast trade routes linking Rome and India. Yet all that visible grandeur is only a backdrop. The true power of Aksum lies within that small chapel. Unlike their tree-dwelling relatives, Galadas live entirely on the ground. They are the only primates on Earth whose diet consists almost entirely of grass. As night falls and temperatures drop below freezing, thousands of them descend sheer cliffs to find shelter, creating one of the most dramatic and chaotic survival spectacles in the natural world. Yet Galadas are not alone in their battle against gravity and cold. Scan the vertical cliffs plunging thousands of meters into the abyss, and you'll encounter the true ghosts of the simians, the walia ibex. You won't find this creature anywhere else on Earth. With their massive, elegantly curved horns, walia ibex move effortlessly along ledges barely half the width of a human foot. Watching them navigate vertical rock faces makes it seem as if the laws of gravity discovered by Isaac Newton no longer apply. They live on the edge of freefall because it is the one place no predator dares to follow. And the greatest shock at this edge of survival is not just the wildlife, it's the humans. Across these impossibly steep slopes, you'll still see patches of green, tiny terraced fields clinging to the cliffs. Despite the brutal terrain, the freezing cold, and the suffocating thin air, local communities have endured here for generations. They farm on the edge of abysses. They herd livestock where a single misstep means certain death. They do not see the harshness of the Simian Mountains as a curse. To them, this vast stone fortress is a sacred refuge, a home that protects their freedom from the chaos of the world below. The presence of humans combined with bleeding-hearted primates and gravity-defying goats turns the Simian Mountains into one of nature's greatest laboratories of survival. It reminds us of a harsh but beautiful truth. Life never chooses the easiest path. It chooses to evolve, adapt, and flourish in the most unforgiving places the universe can create. After passing through boiling chemical wastelands, witnessing the brutal survival of ancient tribes, and standing in awe before architectural masterpieces carved directly into the Earth's crust, you begin to realize a shocking truth. This land is not just another destination on the world's travel map. It is where all of us began. Pause for a moment and reflect on the biological chain flowing through your veins. No matter who you are, whether you were born in New York, Texas, or California, deep within your DNA, lies a primitive identity stamp that traces back to Ethiopia. This is not called the cradle of humanity as a cliché. Beneath that dry red soil lies the fossil skeleton of Lucy. Or, as locals call her, Dinkinesh, meaning you are marvelous. Millions of years ago, on these very harsh plains, our shared ancestors first stood upright and took their earliest steps beginning humanity's rise on this planet. When you set foot in Ethiopia, you are not simply traveling, you are returning to your origin. In the United States, we live in a culture obsessed with the next big thing. We chase the newest phone, the most advanced technology and rockets that promise to carry humanity to Mars. But in a world racing endlessly toward the future, often discarding the past, Ethiopia stands still proud and unshaken. It preserves its identity not by chasing what's next, but by honoring what came first. This land is an eternal fortress, not only guarding its geographic borders, but protecting the earliest memory of our entire species. As the sun slowly sets, casting golden nostalgic light across the legendary Blue Nile. Remember this. These waters born deep within Ethiopia's sacred mountains have flowed north for thousands of years, nourishing and giving rise to the greatness of ancient Egypt. The outside world will keep spinning. New financial and technological empires will rise and fall under the weight of time. But here, in one of the oldest nations on Earth, everything remains unyielding, silent, and eternal, preserving the very first heartbeat of humanity.